The discovery. High Admiral Zara Vec stood motionless before the quantum display, her iridescent scales dulled with exhaustion as she studied the latest battle reports. The swarm had consumed another 3 systems in the past cycle, their endless tide of biomechanical horrors advancing through Federation space with terrifying efficiency. The display cast ethereal patterns across the crystalline walls of her command center aboard the Celestial Bastion, each flickering light representing another lost world. "Tell me something good, Science Director," she said without turning, her auxiliary breathing gills fluttering with barely contained stress. The Council grows impatient. Science Director Lynn Carroll's tentacles rippled with nervous energy as she approached, her hover pad gliding silently across the polished floor. "We've found something unexpected, Admiral. Something that might change everything." Zara's primary eyes narrowed while her secondary set tracked the movement of nearby staff. After 30 cycles of constant retreat, of watching the swarm adapt to and overcome every defense, every weapon, every strategy, she'd learned to be wary of hope. Unexpected how? "We've detected anomalous energy signatures from a previously restricted sector," Lynn said, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement. "Sector 617, what we classified as a primitive development zone." 617. Zara's memory crystals pulsed as she accessed the data. That backwater. The dominant species there barely achieved atmospheric flight when we last checked. They were killing each other over crude oil deposits. Lynn's tentacles twisted into what Zara recognized as their equivalent of a smile. "That's what they wanted us to think." The Science Director interfaced with the quantum display, and the battle reports vanished, replaced by a holographic representation of a small spiral galaxy. It zoomed in rapidly on a particular arm, then a specific system, then a blue-green planet that Zara vaguely remembered from basic xenobiology studies. "Earth," she said. "Home to humans, if I recall correctly. Classified as Stage 2 civilization, pre-FTL. Why are we?" She stopped mid-sentence as new data streams began flowing across the display. Energy readings that shouldn't exist on a Stage 2 world. Gravity manipulations that the Federation had barely theorized. And most shocking of all, quantum signatures that bore an unsettling resemblance to the swarm's own technology. "Impossible," Zara breathed, all 4 eyes wide. "These readings, they're beyond even our capabilities in some areas. How did we miss this?" "Because they wanted us to miss it." Lynn's voice carried an odd mix of admiration and concern. "We've discovered that humans have been aware of our monitoring satellites for at least 15 cycles. Instead of announcing themselves, they fed us carefully crafted disinformation while developing in secret." Zara's scales shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. "You're telling me that a species we dismissed as primitive not only detected our presence, but managed to deceive our most sophisticated surveillance systems." "It gets better." Lynn manipulated the display again, showing what appeared to be massive underground complexes beneath Earth's surface. "They've been preparing for war. Not civil wars like we assumed, but interstellar conflict. They've been developing weapons and defenses without even knowing what they'd be fighting against." The Admiral watched as the display showed test footage of human vessels moving in ways that violated conventional physics, weapon systems that seemed to bypass normal space-time limitations, and defense technologies that appeared to absorb and redirect energy in impossible ways. "How?" Zara demanded. "How did they advance so quickly?" "They don't develop like we do," Lynn explained, her tentacles weaving patterns of excitement. "Where the Federation advances methodically, building upon established principles, humans make intuitive leaps. They imagine possibilities first, and then figure out how to achieve them. They've developed technologies we considered impossible because they never learned they were supposed to be impossible." Zara's scales rippled with a mix of emotions as she processed the implications. "And you think they might be able to help us against the swarm?" "I think they might be our last hope," Lynn said quietly. "The swarm adapts to everything we throw at it because we think like they do. Logically, predictably. But humans. She gestured at the display showing their seemingly impossible achievements. They're anything but predictable. The Admiral was silent for a long moment, watching the evidence of humanity's hidden progress. A species that had concealed their true nature from the Federation, that had prepared for war against unknown enemies, that had developed technologies that shouldn't exist. It was either humanity's greatest deception or the Federation's greatest opportunity. How do you think they'll respond to contact? Zara asked finally. Lynn's bioluminescent patches pulsed with what might have been amusement. Oh, they're already expecting us. In fact, based on the communications we intercepted, they've been waiting for us to figure it out. They've known about the swarm for years, watching our battles, analyzing our defeats. They've been preparing specifically for this war. Zara's scales shifted to the golden hue of decision. Prepare my ship. If we're going to beg for humanity's help, we should at least do it in person. She paused, then added, and Lynn, make sure our weapons are powered down when we approach Earth. Something tells me we don't want to appear threatening to a species that's been preparing for war since before they knew their enemies existed. As the science director hurried away, Zara turned back to the quantum display, watching the impossible human ships dance through their test maneuvers. For the first time in 30 cycles, she felt something dangerous stirring in her heart. Hope. Project Phoenix. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of orbital platform Zeus, watching the approaching Federation vessel with a mixture of anticipation and amusement. After 15 years of hiding humanity's true capabilities, the charade was finally ending. The massive crystalline ship, elegant and advanced by most standards, looked almost quaint compared to what lurked beneath Earth's surface. They're hailing us again, Colonel James Rodriguez reported from his station, his neural interface glowing softly beneath his skin. Still using standard Federation protocols. Should we continue playing dumb? Sarah smiled, brushing a strand of silver-streaked hair from her face. No, I think they've earned a proper welcome. Let's show them what Project Phoenix is really about. She pressed her palm against the quantum-locked console, and the entire station transformed. The seemingly primitive exterior melted away like morning fog, revealing the true face of humanity's greatest achievement. The Federation ship's sensors would now be detecting energy signatures that would have been impossible for their previous assessment of Earth's technological level. Their ship just went to combat alert, James announced, grinning. Weapons powered down, but shields at maximum. I think we scared them. Good, Sarah replied. Fear breeds respect. Open a channel, full spectrum. Let's give them a proper greeting. The quantum display shimmed to life, revealing High Admiral Zaravek's scaled face. The alien leader's 4 eyes widened noticeably at the sight of the transformed station and the human's advanced command center. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Vec, Sarah said smoothly. I'm Director Chen of Project Phoenix. We've been expecting you. Director, Zara's voice carried a mix of wariness and fascination. Your deception was impressive, though I question why such elaborate measures were necessary. Survival, Sarah stated simply. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak while being strong is far more advantageous than appearing strong while being weak, but we can discuss philosophy later. You're here about the swarm. Zara's scales shifted to a deeper hue. Yes, your capabilities. They're beyond anything we expected. How did you achieve this level of advancement without detection? Sarah gestured, and holographic displays materialized around them, showing vast underground complexes and orbital facilities that had been hidden from Federation sensors. Project Phoenix was initiated the moment we detected your first monitoring satellites. While you watched our surface activities, we built our real civilization below ground and behind quantum veils. But why? Zora pressed. The Federation would have welcomed Earth as an ally. Would you? Sarah's voice carried a hint of steel. A young species suddenly displaying technology that rivals or exceeds your own. We've studied your history, Admiral. The Federation's treatment of upstart civilizations has been less than enlightened. Before Zara could respond, James spoke up. Multiple contacts emerging from lunar orbit, Director. The Phoenix fleet is ready for demonstration. Sarah nodded, and the space around Earth seemed to ripple. Massive ships emerged from what had appeared to be empty void, their hulls gleaming with patterns that seemed to bend light itself. Each vessel was unlike anything the Federation had ever encountered, their designs ignoring conventional spaceship architecture in favor of forms that seemed to defy physics. By the first light, Zara breathed, her auxiliary gills fluttering in shock. "How many ships have you built?" "Enough," Sarah replied simply. "But numbers aren't what make our fleet special. James, show them a basic combat simulation." The space between the Earth and Moon suddenly lit up with holographic projections of swarm vessels, perfect recreations based on the battles they'd observed. The Phoenix fleet moved to engage, and what followed made Zora's scales pale to nearly white. The human ships didn't fight like Federation vessels. They didn't rely on conventional weapons or tactics. Instead, they seemed to bend reality itself, creating localized phenomena that turned space itself into a weapon. Swarm ships were caught in temporal eddies, their matter converted into energy and back again, their very consciousness scattered across quantum states. "Impossible," Zara whispered. "You've weaponized quantum mechanics itself." "Nothing is impossible," Sarah corrected. "That's humanity's greatest strength. We don't accept limitations. When we encountered a problem, we didn't try to solve it within existing parameters. We changed the parameters themselves." The demonstration continued, showing capabilities that the Federation had never even theorized. Ships that could phase through normal matter while remaining solid enough to fight. Weapons that didn't destroy the swarm but rather rewrote their base code at the quantum level. Defenses that didn't just block attacks but absorbed and redirected them. "Your ships," Zara said slowly, "they're not just vessels, are they?" Sarah's smile held a predatory edge. "They're humanity's answer to the swarm's hive mind. Each ship is piloted by a quantum-linked crew, their consciousness expanded and enhanced, but never surrendered. We don't fight the swarm with just technology, Admiral. We fight them with the one thing they can never understand: individual will combined with collective purpose." "And you think this will be enough?" Zara asked, her voice holding a desperate edge of hope. "No," Sarah replied, her expression growing serious. "We know it will be enough. Because unlike the Federation, we haven't been fighting to not lose. We've been preparing to win. The only question is, are you ready to step aside and let us do what needs to be done?" The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Humanity hadn't just caught up to the galactic community. They had surpassed it in ways that would forever change the balance of power. And they were offering their help not from a position of weakness, but from one of carefully hidden strength. First Contact Protocol. The Grand Council chamber of the Federation wasn't designed to intimidate, but Commander David John couldn't help but feel that was the point. The perfect symmetry, the crystalline architecture that seemed to defy gravity, the assembled representatives of 300 species, it all spoke of power so assured it didn't need to threaten. Too bad they were losing the war anyway. Absolutely not. Counselor Merrick's crystalline form vibrated with indignation, sending rainbow patterns across the chamber. "You cannot expect the Federation to simply hand over tactical control of our combined fleets to the species that might actually save you." David's neural implants pulsed softly as he maintained his connection with the Phoenix network. He could feel Sarah Chen's amusement from orbit, where she monitored the negotiations through his feed. "I believe that's exactly what we expect." High Admiral Zaravek, who had been quietly observing until now, shifted her scales to a diplomatic blue. "Commander Zhang, surely you understand our concerns. The Federation has stood for 10,000 years. Our protocols and chain of command have led you to lose half the galaxy to the swarm." David interrupted, his augmented eyes scanning the chamber. The Phoenix network highlighted the subtle signs of stress in each counselor. Elevated breathing patterns, increased hormone production, micro-expressions that gave away their fear. Your protocols are precisely why you're losing. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, each species trying to argue over the others. David waited patiently, letting them vent their outrage. His neural implants continued gathering data, analyzing reactions, feeding everything back to Earth for processing. Enough. The voice belonged to Grand Arbiter Xan, the massive gas-based entity floating in their containment field at the head of the chamber. Their consciousness patterns swirled like storm clouds as they addressed the assembly. Commander Zhang speaks harshly, but we cannot deny the truth of his words. The Federation is losing this war. Then let Earth join the Federation properly, Counselor Merrick's insisted. Let them integrate their forces into our command structure, share their technology. No, David said simply. The single word cut through the chamber like a quantum blade. Earth will not submit to Federation authority. We will not share our technology. And we will not watch you squander our capabilities the way you've squandered your own. More outrage, more protests. David noted with interest how the younger species seemed more willing to accept Earth's terms, while the ancient races that formed the Federation's core were the most resistant. Fear of change, he supposed, ran deep in any civilization that had grown too comfortable with its own power. Then what do you propose? Zara asked, her scales shifting to a curious copper tone. How would this alliance work? David gestured and holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing detailed tactical analyses of both Federation and Swarm battle strategies. The Federation continues to fight the Swarm like they're a conventional enemy. You try to hold territory, establish defensive lines, maintain supply chains. But the Swarm isn't an army. They're a viral consciousness spreading through the galaxy. The displays shifted, showing simulation after simulation of Federation defeats. Every time you fight them conventionally, you make them stronger. They adapt to your tactics, absorb your technology, learn from every engagement. You're not just losing battles. You're literally teaching them how to beat you. And you have a better approach. Counselor Merrick's crystalline form sparkled with skepticism. We do. David's neural implants pulsed as he accessed more data from the Phoenix network. New holograms appeared, showing Earth's revolutionary combat doctrine. We don't fight to hold territory. We don't engage in predictable patterns. Every ship in our fleet is capable of independent action while remaining part of a quantum-linked whole. We don't just adapt to the enemy. We force them to adapt to us, then change again before they can. The chamber fell silent as they watched the simulations. Human ships moving in ways that seemed to ignore physics, weapons that altered reality itself, defense systems that turned the Swarm's attacks back on themselves. Your terms, Grand Arbiter Xan asked, their storm-like consciousness patterns intensifying. Earth takes complete tactical control of all military operations against the Swarm, David stated. The Federation provides resources, logistics, and support, but all combat decisions come through our command structure. In return, we commit to not just stopping the Swarm, but eliminating them as a threat. And after the war? Zara's question hung in the air like a quantum particle, simultaneously representing every possible future. David's augmented eyes met each council member's gaze in turn. After the war, the galaxy learns to live with a humanity that's done hiding. We won't conquer, we won't dominate, but we also won't pretend to be less than we are. The old order of the Federation ends either way, whether by our victory or the Swarm's. The silence that followed was deafening. Every being in the chamber knew this was more than a military alliance. It was the end of an era. The Federation would never again be the unchallenged power in the galaxy. The only choice was whether they would accept change on humanity's terms, or have it forced upon them by the Swarm. You're asking us to trust our survival to a species that has done nothing but deceive us since first contact, Counselor Merrick said finally. No, David corrected, allowing himself a small smile. We're offering you the chance to survive. Trust has nothing to do with it. The Swarm is coming, and they will consume everything in their path. You can either accept our help on our terms, or you can maintain your precious protocols right up until the moment the swarm absorbs the last of your worlds. Grand Arbiter Xan's consciousness patterns swirled faster as they processed the implications. And if we refuse, then humanity will fight alone, David said simply. We'll seal off our sector of space and let you face the swarm without us. We've hidden from the galaxy this long. We can do it again if necessary. The threat hung in the air like a sword. The Federation faced a choice between submission to humanity's terms or facing extinction alone. In the end, it wasn't really a choice at all. New dawn. 3 months after Operation Checkmate, the Grand Council chamber looked very different. Where once only Federation representatives sat, now former swarm entities occupied seats alongside them. Dr. Sarah Chen observed the proceedings from Earth's newly installed quantum projection platform, watching species that had been mortal enemies just months ago engaging in diplomatic dialogue. The final reports are in, Director Zhang announced to the assembled representatives, his neural implants gleaming. The last remnant of the original swarm consciousness has been isolated and contained. The war is officially over. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of celebration, each species expressing joy in their own unique way. Sarah noticed that even the most conservative Federation members had abandoned their usual rigid protocols, caught up in the historic moment. High Admiral Zaravek, her scales shimmering with emotion, addressed the chamber. We owe humanity more than we can ever repay. They didn't just save us from the swarm. They saved the swarm from itself. That was always the plan, Sarah replied, allowing herself a small smile. Humanity learned long ago that the most decisive victories don't come from destroying your enemies, but from transforming them into allies. A massive crystalline being, once part of the swarm, now the representative of a newly independent species, moved forward. We who were trapped within the collective owe you the greatest debt. You didn't just free us. You showed us a new way of existing. Unity without uniformity, connection without control. Sarah nodded in acknowledgement, but her attention was drawn to the quantum displays showing the ongoing transformation of galactic society. Former swarm ships, now controlled by their liberated crews, were helping to rebuild worlds they had once threatened. The quantum virus that had freed them had done more than just break the hive mind's control. It had created a new form of consciousness that balanced individual identity with collective cooperation. And now, Grand Arbiter Xan's consciousness patterns swirled with anticipation. We must discuss humanity's role in the new galactic order. The chamber grew quiet. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Earth had proven itself not just technologically superior, but philosophically advanced in ways that challenged both Federation and swarm assumptions about consciousness and cooperation. Earth has no desire to rule, Sarah stated clearly, her voice carrying through the chamber. But neither will we hide any longer. We propose a new form of galactic organization, not a hierarchy like the Federation, not a collective like the swarm, but a network of equals. She gestured and holographic displays materialized, showing a new structure for galactic civilization. The quantum link technology that we use to coordinate our fleet can be adapted for peaceful purposes. Instant communication, shared knowledge, collaborative decision-making, but with protocols that preserve individual and species autonomy. A galactic network, Zara mused, her scales shifting through thoughtful colors, built on human principles of individual freedom within collective cooperation. Exactly, Director Zhang confirmed. Earth will share this technology freely, along with the quantum shielding that kept us hidden for so long. No species should ever feel the need to hide their true nature again. The implications rippled through the chamber. Earth was offering to fundamentally transform galactic civilization, not through force or dominance, but by providing tools for genuine cooperation and communication. And the liberated swarm technology, a Federation counselor asked cautiously. The advanced capabilities they developed will be studied and adapted safely, with representatives from all species participating, Sarah assured them. The quantum virus didn't just free individual consciousness. It preserved knowledge while eliminating the compulsion to consume and control. Together, we can learn to use these technologies wisely. The debate that followed was unlike anything the Chamber had seen in its long history. Former enemies discussed cooperation, conservative Federation members engaged with radical new ideas, and liberated swarm entities offered perspectives that bridged seemingly impossible gaps. Sarah watched it all through her quantum-enhanced senses, feeling a deep satisfaction. Humanity had hidden its true nature for years, preparing not just for war, but for peace. They had developed weapons that liberated rather than destroyed, and strategies that transformed enemies into allies. "You knew, didn't you?" Zara asked privately through a quantum channel. "Even before we discovered Earth's true capabilities, you were preparing for this moment." "We knew that any civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel would eventually face this choice," Sarah replied. "Continue evolving toward genuine cooperation, or fall into patterns of control and consumption." The swarm chose one path, the Federation another. Humanity decided to find a third way. As the Chamber continued its historic debate, quantum links were already spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had never truly understood each other began sharing thoughts and perspectives while maintaining their unique identities. The age of isolation and fear was ending, replaced by something new, something that combined the best aspects of individual freedom and collective cooperation. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had been the catalyst, not through conquest or assimilation, but through the simple, powerful idea that consciousness, whether individual or collective, yearned to be free. The war was over, but the real transformation was just beginning.